This is Propulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois du Toit. At the risk of assuming that I need to really introduce you, Lelani, I am still going to introduce you. So for those of you who don't know Lelani is the current CEO of the Financial Planning Institute, and somebody that I've worked with for quite a long time. And alongside, sometimes she had to, give me calls and say, do not do that. Please don't do that. Because, that's how I am sometimes. Say, sorry, I won't do that again. But Lelani, amazing to have you on the show. It's been a while. I think the last time you were a guest twice on the show. Once way back in the day with David when we spoke about advisor titles and stuff. And then there was another time where you were on when we were doing Women's Month. So it's fantastic to have you back in season 5. So warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, Francois. Yeah, I remember the very first podcast we had. I rocked up with beautiful red lipstick and perfume. Not that that mattered, hey? But
No.
Francois, I'm glad I'm not the only one whose tongue is a bit stuck or frozen this morning. When you did that, I had such a laugh. But thank you for inviting me back to the show. And for starters, you are doing awesome work. I just wanted to give you
Thank you.
personally a shout out.
Now I listen to when I'm reprimanded and I do better. So we try our best.
Muy
Lelani,
bien.
there's so much that we need to talk about. So I'm going to get
Yes.
straight into it.
Wow.
You've just come back from FPSB meetings and all sorts of things. And there's obviously loads of things
That's it.
being spoken about
Yeah.
at that. So I want to delve into specific things, not necessarily just only from that, but I think things that are maybe top of mind for a lot of people, particularly those that do have their CFP designations, etc. I think there's loads of things that we can talk about. So we can maybe just sort of delve into the credentialing and recognition and all that kind of stuff first. What is the difference between certified financial planner designation and something that started becoming more and more, I don't say prevalent, but definitely something that's crept up more and more, is something that we term micro-credentialing. And with micro, like just from my perspective, and you can definitely correct me, it's like we're not meaning that it's a small credential. It just means it's very specific. It's niche. I think another word would be niche, maybe, not necessarily micro. But what is the main difference between those?
Yeah, sure. Where to start? So, for starters, Francois, yes, I just returned from Denver in Colorado, where the Financial Planning Standards Board office is. It's on 707 17th Street in Denver. Beautiful city. And maybe just for background for the listeners, I didn't go there to attend a LACA conference. It's literally the top 7 affiliates globally from the Financial Planning Standards Board that meets in Denver once a year. That is the FPSB's head office. So it makes sense that we go there. And I've got the privilege, and I'm very humbled by it, to chair this committee. It's named, or it's called the Chief Executive Committee. And on that committee, we have the top 7 territories. And I'll give you a shout out in alphabetical order. It is South Africa, it's Australia. South Africa is first because I'm the chair, then Australia, Brazil, Canada, Ireland, Japan, China, the United States, and of course the FPSB themselves. So what we did on day one is we had a beautiful joint session with the Professional Standards Committee, and a special shout out to Esther Venter from South Africa. She is one of the individuals that actually came up with the concept of knowing, being, doing. As you know, the curriculum was reviewed. So I met up with Esther Venter all the way from Cape Town in Denver, and we had the privilege of doing this joint session together. And those micro credentialing, and I want to give a shout out to the speakers those days. So Bill West, who is from the Institute of Credentialing Excellence, actually spoke to us about the importance of understanding the difference, to your question, Francois, between micro credentialing and then the CFP designation. So micro-credentialing, you are quite correct. It is in a niche specialized area, but we have to understand, how does this micro-credentialing and MOOCs, now what on earth is a MOOC? It sounds like something cowish. No, it's a massive open online course. So that is what a MOOC is. So how do we have MOOCs micro-credentialing and badges. These are the badges you receive once you've received something or completed something like the psychology and financial planning, or you've done maybe some other online courses. So how does these MOOCs, badges, micro-credentials, all of these things, and this is the world where the alphas live. And with this, I'm not referring to an Alfa Romeo, those cars. I'm referring to the alphas who are the children of millennials, who is considered not young anymore today. And then the Zoomers. So there's a whole new way of learning. And I don't want to just leave it up to the young ones. Even us who're slightly older, we learn via MOOCs these days as well. So what is the major difference then between the CFP designation and this micro-credentialing? There is a major difference. And we have to bear in mind the moment that you obtain a micro-credential, you have to make sure about its credibility. Is it something that is an official certification, or is it something that's not really going to help you in your journey? And where these two complement each other, the official micro credentials, is in recognition of prior learning, Francois. I hope that
I
answers
really
your
like
question.
that. Yeah.
Mm,
It is quite interesting because, like, I mean, it feels to me sometimes like it's easy to come up with one of these credentialing. So I think
mm,
looking for the credibility and what's behind it and how it's recognized elsewhere is quite an important thing. I often think about Udemy, for example, is a fantastic place to
yep.
go and find a lot of like learning stuff, and it's great to learn those skills and be able to use them. Um, but I don't know yet, like, if somebody says, oh, Francois did a Udemy course, for example, that's really powerful. Now, that's not what we're talking about necessarily here, although I think that also falls into that. Um, what I am sort of interesting to note, like if somebody does a lot of these kinds of things and they then decide like, now I want to pursue becoming a certified financial planner, for example, one of the things is that we need a specific level of qualification. So they may say, like, look, I did all of these programs and all these micro credentials, I've got them, and these badges, et cetera, et cetera. Will that ever be, or is that being considered? Something that I know that a lot of people are going through in South Africa specifically is recognition of prior learning, trying to not have to go and study like a lot of stuff and maybe just having to do their postgrad and not having to do an NTF level 6, etc. So are they playing a role? Will they be playing a role? And does recognition of prior learning, is that a thing globally?
That's an interesting question, and thank you for that, Francois. The RPL, and every time I go to these global meetings, there's a few acronyms that I have to say in full. I cannot talk about SARS on the global platforms because they think it's the SARS virus. So I have to talk about the South African Revenue Services, and also RPL. I have to say recognition of prior learning because it's not that well known in other territories. Now with South Africa, there's so many things, Francois, that we are actually leading in leaps and bounds. If we compare ourselves to some of the other territories, RPL being one. But in some instances, we are not forward in our thinking, and one of the areas where we're not that forward in our thinking in South Africa when it comes to RPL is how do we recognize the Udemy courses, the badges, etc., when we want access to a qualification. So RPL, or recognition of prior learning, is always about access to something. So what is supposed to happen, and in our conversations as a professional body with the South African Qualifications Authority, in short SAQA, we keep on pushing, and also with the Conduct Authority, the importance of recognition of prior learning. I mean, I always said, if somebody completed the learning outcomes of the regulatory examinations, why do they need to write RE? Questions to consider when it comes to recognition of prior learning. But the importance of RPL is when you take a curriculum. So it's very important that when you do obtain a qualification, that it speaks to a curriculum. And professional bodies like the FPI is the owners of a curriculum. And that curriculum needs to speak to the qualification. So what an RPL assessor would do, and you need to make sure if you want, so let's say you're listening to the show today and you do want to become a certified financial planner, find yourself an RPL assessor. And if you don't know where to find an RPL assessor, please reach out to me or Nikki. What the RPL assessor then actually does is to look at everything that you've done and to map it to the learning outcomes of the academic part of becoming a certified financial planner. And it's almost like weet die kringetjies en kruisies. So you could go tick off, okay, you meet this learning outcome, you meet that learning outcome, you're exempted from this part of the module, and we're all familiar with exemption. And then by that time, the university or the tertiary educational provider would say, from an RPL point of view, because you meet these learning outcomes, we now give you access to the qualification. So you will never be exempted, especially with the CFP designation, from obtaining that qualification. But recognition of prior learning could tick some of your learning outcomes already, and your time that you spent in obtaining that academic qualification may be shorter. So RPL is never there to replace you obtaining the qualification, but to make your journey maybe a little bit shorter, Francois. So we are leading in the space of RPL, but we're not there yet with taking the MOOCs and credentials and badges into consideration yet.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lelani, for clarifying that. I think it's an important point because there is definitely this idea around that if I have this, I don't need to do that, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So thanks for clarifying. I'll come back to the CFP designation in a minute, but maybe two, maybe three. I want to talk a little bit about AI. um,
I.
yeah, I know, like you and I can maybe talk about this for a very long time, but there's, I think the side of AI that we need to
Mm.
explore a little bit more is more around the risks and the responsibilities that we have. I mean, you highlighted a very important point during the news segment this morning around how other people are using AI, because as much as we can use it for good, people will use it for the opposite or to gain an edge above something, which is also the idea in business, I guess, is to gain an edge. But there are certain things that have more severe implications on humanity and not just on you and your business and your clients. And I want to start off with this whole thing because there's a lot of tools out there that are free. And then there are also, I guess, a lot of tools that are paid for. And I'm keen to hear from your point of view. If you think about free AI tools and paid for AI tools, specifically in the financial planning space, or tools that we could use as part of our business, what are the main differences for you?
Before I dive into that, Fransha, thank you. There's something you said right in the beginning that triggered me to say the following. Now, some people may like it or not, but it comes from the heart. We need to be careful to, and I said that in your tech show as well, we need to be careful to seed our intellectual capacity to AI. And sometimes I ask myself, who's really the intellectual one, the human being or AI? So we should, veer away from completely ceding our intellectual capacity to AI and to become lazy. I mean, since the calculator came in, what we've to some extent lost the ability to just quickly do a calculation in our head. Look up and go da 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 and work it out. You always quickly grab your cell phone. So be very careful to overuse AI and to lose your brain in the process, if I may put it that way. But to come back to your question, I want to give credit to the speaker because I'm going to dive into what he has shared with us. And the speaker there was David Younger. So think of hunger, but it's David Younger. And he's the CEO and co founder of Vital. And he spoke to us about how AI is actually playing into education and certification. But to focus more specifically on your question, we must be very careful what type of AI do we use. And what he did that day is he had Maslow hierarchy, but in there he had the different levels of AI, and that was quite interesting as he took us through the various steps. And the first step that he started with, if you are using an open AI that is for free, you link it to your Gmail account, or whatever the case may be, you are actually only just on level 0. And why are you only just on level 0? Well, there's a lot of risks that come with open AI. And he shared a few case laws and litigation with us that's going on at the moment because people unknowingly shared their company's AI in this open sources. And remember, your company's own intellectual property is not protected the moment that you decide to use an open source. So be very careful when you do use that. And you've got companies suing each other because they are using each other's intellectual property without actually knowing that. So that is when you use level 1. Level 0, that's the public general AI. Then level 1 is the private one. And that is one where you have ChatGPT Enterprise, etc., ChatGPT Team, etc., and Enterprise Copilot or BART. Now, for those who don't know who BART is, it's not a BART as in Afrikaans. It's BART is AI that Google is using. So you have BART, and then you have Enterprise Copilot. We've just started experimenting with Copilot within the FBI, and I'm part of phase one when we are looking at how Copilot can actually help us. But again, caution when you use Copilot. I mean, I'm at the point where I actually get quite irritated, Fransha. Whenever I open a PDF, I've got this AI reader coming up to say, how may I help you understand, how may I help you to understand this document? And it pre-populates questions because it already read the document before I had. Now, there's one of two choices I have there. I could rather go, oh, you've got all the questions, give me all the answers. Or I could actually read through the document first, step one, and then step two, challenge AI and the questions that it asks. And I would encourage every single person online, read through everything first. Then you can use AI to help you summarize, etc. Because the summaries is not always accurate. Because AI, to the risks that we spoke, and I think Quibus Klein, you spoke about this a few times as well, is the biases that comes with AI. It does have its own mind, and depending on what it finds on the World Wide Web, it may come up with a summary that speaks to something different because it resources not just your article but what's going on the World Wide Web. It almost makes me think of that, what is it, Transformer, where it reads all the Pentagon's messages. So be careful when you use that. Then level three is production applications, where we have AI-based hyperscale models and LL learning management systems. So that is where AI actually do come into learning management systems to help the student to learn more. So his topic was where we focused on education as well. But we do know that a lot of the educational providers do not allow you to use AI because they do want the students to actually use their own mindsets, their own brains, and apply the knowledge themselves. Now, from an FPI point of view, I will always bring in the FPI because I'm from the FPI. We do use AI in our assessments in the form that AI is helping us to track the eye movement when our students are writing the exams. And the moment that there's an eye movement in a student writing the exam, and you maybe look at a cell phone or you look at a screen, which you're not allowed to have a second one, it actually sends a warning to the real life proctor who's watching you via your camera on the other side of the screen. And the person will phone you and say, Lalani, what are you doing? Are you looking at something else? So that is how FPI is combining AI with a real life person to help us actually invigilate our exams. For those who didn't know, yes, Big Brother is watching. And then level four is where you have the intelligent apps, the custom made models, your own IP. So this is where you have a lot of companies who has developed their own generative AI to actually speak specifically to your type of products that you sell and the scripts that you maybe have or should have when it comes to selling your products. So there's lots of levels. And to your question, to circle back to what you've asked, Francois, we need to really make sure that when we use AI, that we always do it with caution, especially if it is level zero, which is the open one. Be very careful not to give your own company's intellectual property away by mistake.
Yeah. And for me, it goes almost like with
Yeah.
any kind of software you're using. When
Yeah.
it's free, there's a reason it's free. They maybe want to let you try
Data
before you
breach.
buy. But ultimately, there's a big benefit for them in allowing that as well. So it doesn't matter what you use, opt for the paid versions as much as possible and make sure what the terms and conditions are of those software, not only the AI stuff. So I just want to take it one step further.
Yeah.
So thanks for that,
Francois,
Leilani.
it's something I forgot if I may quickly say this. I was in a meeting yesterday, and a regulatory meeting, and I said to the regulator, doesn't matter who they are, I said, you know what, are you aware that some of the attendees brought the AI listeners in? And I think that's something we also need to reflect on because if you use the unverified AI tool that helps you to record the meeting and to script it, you actually take information out of closed meetings sometimes. So I would encourage every single person, when you've got meetings, and especially when it is company, let's say you've got a board of directors meeting online, and it's really privileged information to your company, and you're busy doing strat planning. The moment that that AI tool comes in to record and script for the person, you know what, it leaves your environment. So make sure that your policies when it comes to meetings is updated, and do not feel bad if you see somebody has got an AI listener or scripted, to actually remove that person or that AI tool from the meeting, because serious data breaches can actually take place, especially if you use the unverified option, because it comes in and it sits on top of your database. So it's just a word of caution, Francia. Whenever you've got a meeting that's supposedly closed, like a board meeting, be very careful that your policy is clear on which AI readers is allowed in your meeting and which ones are not. Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic.
Mm.
Also, I think what is important is that because Liana just made a comment in the chat saying that they had one of these listeners in yesterday in a meeting, and it's only about 50% correct. So
Yep.
some of these
Yep.
things are better than others. That's the first point. But the other thing I want to add to that is that sometimes you look at something and you go like, this is not that good, so let me not use it because I can't trust it, or I can't use it, or it doesn't get this right, or it gets that wrong. And I think if we focus on that too and use that as a reason not to use AI as well, that's not a clever thing to do,
Yeah.
probably. You do want to still embrace it because it doesn't get it right now. But
Mm.
somewhere, I just saw an
Teach
article
it.
the other day where somebody was saying, we're about to see AI have empathy. And 4 years ago, they said it wouldn't, and it won't be creative. And we can do whatever you or anybody else would be able to say, if I say you, like somebody watching this, would be able to say or listening to this, would say that AI can't do this. You should always add comma yet,
Yeah.
because it will do it at some point in time. So there's massive benefits, but these risks, Lelani, that you're highlighting, they're real, they are
Mm.
serious, and it's things that you can't just blindly go and use these tools.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for highlighting that. In the interest of time, I've got to jump onto the next topic because you and I are not going to get through everything. Let's jump a little bit back to the CFP designation. One thing that was always incredible for me about the CFP designation is that it is a globally recognized designation, certification. It's a
Mm.
global brand.
Yep.
Now, yet, if I go from South Africa and I want to go to Australia, I've got to write exams. If I go to New Zealand, I've got to write exams. So my big question is, how does this benefit me if I want to work internationally? And also now think about what's happening at the moment. So at the moment, I can sit in South Africa and serve clients who are overseas. And
Mm.
maybe it's with regards to their South African sort of financial affairs, or it could maybe I'm trying to do cross-border advice. So there's loads of things that when you and I last spoke 5 years ago wasn't as big as it is today. So maybe just your thoughts on that.
I'm gonna say to you what the benefit is of writing that exam. So yes, you can this cross-border transfer of the CFP designation, but you will always, and I will state this categorically, you will always have to write an exam, some form of an exam, because the monetary and fiscal environment between South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK, name it, Japan, China, is significantly different from territory to territory. So to empower you to be a better CFP professional cross border, whether you are advising from South Africa or whether you're physically moving to another territory, that exam is to aid you and not to give you another barrier to entry or to give you a stumbling block. It helps you to understand and to better advise that client, but it also protects the integrity of the CFP mark. So that's in short, Francois, the exam will never fall away. There will always be some form of an exam, not necessarily the full exam, but one that hones in on territory specific legislation. I hope that answered
But
you.
what are the opportunities then? For if you think about that CFP is globally recognized, what are
Yeah.
what are the opportunities then for financial planners?
There's a lot of opportunities in this, and especially for South Africa, we've had a lot of CFP professionals that went to various territories. So the opportunity for you is you can physically have clients, especially in South Africa, we have a lot of clients that's leaving our country. You can still give advice or do financial planning for your clients who had moved away. But a very nice benefit to have is as we are leveraging the global nature of the CFP designation, a South African certified financial planner, let's say your client moves to the US, can reach out and work together with a CFP professional in the US. And I would encourage that a local CFP professional takes hand with a CFP professional abroad. If you are not physically moving from South Africa to Australia, I would encourage that you work with an Australian CFP if your client is in Australia. So the benefit there, it's really becoming more global village, Francois. If you look at the sessions that Kirsty Scully and Andrea Middle and Eunice did for us from a global point of view, that is where we had three CFP professionals from different territories coming together on the FPSB platform and speaking to the CFP professionals globally on how we can leverage by relying on each other. So gone are the days where you don't have the tools to quickly phone a CFP professional in the US. I'm going to use the US. If you go to the CFP board's website and you go look for a specific CFP professional in a specific territory. They call it territories on their side of the world. You can go and say, I'm looking for a CFP professional in this territory who specialize in the following fields, and it will give you the full details of all the CFP professionals where you can just set up a meeting. And today we've got Zoom, we've got MS Teams, and you can sit and talk to a CFP professional on the other side of the screen for the benefit of your client. Are we there 100%? No, we're not there 100% yet, which is why some of the strategic focus areas of the Chief Executive Committee globally is to see how can we truly leverage the global nature. One of the areas that we are already looking at and which is allowed is if you as a CFP professional in South Africa decided you completed a CPD course in New Zealand, that is actually applicable as continuous professional development for you as a CFP professional, not necessarily for your regulatory CPD. I want to separate those two for today, but you are allowed to do CPD courses across the world and claim FPI CFP CPD.
That's fantastic. Lani, then talking about CFP, there's more than one CFP. Can I call it designation? If I'm technically incorrect, just reprimand me. But so I know there's a bit of a thing around the two CFPs. I don't even know if everybody listening to this or watching this is even aware of this. But there are two things, and I want to know, sort of just at a high level, maybe what is the issue or the challenges. Because there's these two designations. You've got the Certified Financial Planner certification or designation, and then there's also the Chartered Financial Planner designation. What is currently happening in this space?
Sure, I'll keep it high level. So in Canada, you have the Chartered Financial Planner, but also in the UK, those two are different. We should not, and then you've got the Certified Financial Planner. So in Canada, there is and this is where the storm happened. There is a Chartered Financial Planner, but the membership to that body is very small. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's far below 100 even. And if you look at the Certified Financial Planner globally, we are already sitting on over 224,000 CFP professionals. So that body only has below 100 chartered financial planners. It was a bit of a storm and a teacup, but we do not want to underestimate the importance of trademark protection. So I can't share too much detail, but there is litigation going on between that institute and the Financial Planning Institute of Canada, FP Canada. And it's not a South African issue, it's a Canadian issue. It's not the UK Chartered. The UK Chartered has been around since 1912. So I want to remove the UK Chartered from the Chartered in Canada. It's a private litigation matter at this point in time. And they are running with it. So there's no need for South Africa to get involved. You know, it's like Canada getting involved in the South African issue. Leave it to Tasha Badstone. She knows what she's doing together with the Financial Planning Standards Board. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lani, any last words that maybe something that I haven't asked you that's maybe just top of mind, just in closing, that you want to leave everyone with?
I will. So very high level. We had a fantastic update from the Netherlands with regards to how their retirement reform is changing. They are only moving from defined benefit to defined contribution now, and Regulation 28 is non-existent. So what I want to say is do not think because we are a developing country that South Africa is far behind the rest of the world. in many instances, South Africa is actually, in the top running groups in implementing standards, psychology of financial planning. Kim, I loved your session this morning. Thank you so much. From the use of AI all the way to our own retirement reform. I must say they were a little bit shocked when I gave them an update with regards to our two-part system. But the moment that I dove into the reasons why we are allowing the access, they actually understood. And I focused more on the preservation part than the access part. And I just want to say a big shout out to everybody online. Thank you for supporting Francois's show, but definitely also the Financial Planning Institute. And if there's any feedback that you want to give to us specifically with regards to CFP, reach out to me. At any point in time, I'm fairly accessible, and I do try to get to my emails as fast as I can. And Francois, bless you. That's all I can end off with.
Thank you very much, Leilani. It was really great talking to you. So thank you so much. If you want to connect with Leilani, obviously LinkedIn is the place. I did put the link down in the description below as well. So you can easily connect with her from there, and also follow the Financial Planning Institute on LinkedIn. So Leilani, thank you very much, and wishing you a fantastic weekend.
Dankie. Blessings. Au revoir.
Alrighty. Fantastic. So let me just go see if this thing is working. I hope so. We are going to do a spin the wheel. I lost it. Let me just bring it back, and let's just see if we've got everybody on here. There we go. Fantastic. Righty. So if you are ready, I am ready. We're going to do a quick spin of the wheel 3 times and see who will win a hamper. So just first off, thank you very much, first of all, for attending the Propulsion Tech event, and secondly, for giving us feedback. I know it takes time out of your day, and again, sometimes just remembering what happened in day 1 versus day 3 is already a thing. So thank you very much. Right, so let's do the first spin, and let's see who's going to be the first winner to say thank you, or who do we want to say thank you to for that. So who is it going to be? We've got Francis. Brilliant stuff. Well done. We have a winner, Francis Neetling. Thank you very much. Fantastic. So I'm going to remove you from the list so you can't win twice. So Francis, well done, and bye-bye, donkey. Next up, who's going to be our next winner? This is so much fun. I really enjoy these things. I'm a bit of a nerd. All right, so who is it going to be? And we have... Is it going? Donkey Metsi. I hope I'm saying that correct. Well done. Fantastic, fantastic. Hear the applause and see the confetti going. Thank you very much. And our last winner for this is going to be... Let's see, who is it going to be? It is going to be... It's Heloise. Heloise, congratulations. I don't know if you're here this morning or not, but there you go. So thank you very, very much. Fantastic. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Run a little bit over time, but thank you very much. If you are going to do something this weekend, enjoy. I want to say stay safe, be blessed and prosper. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, of course. And have a fantastic weekend. And I'll see you very soon. Love you lots. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Propulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called Propulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.